Hey, thanks for tuning in to my channel today. It's Paul Laverne. I'm a registered psychotherapist. And on this channel, I interview people discussing all aspects of sexuality, compulsive sexual behavior, what's healthy, what's unhealthy. I've had guests on here who have been porn performers, people who are recovering porn addicts, people who are authors, activists, academics, educators, filmmakers. And I'm super happy to be here with Carl Thomas, who's a major player. He's a humble guy. He's probably going to blush when I say this and laugh it off, but Carl is a major player in this space of helping men with their compulsive sexual behavior. And I'm so happy that he's here. Hey, Carl, how you doing? Down near Philly, my American friend is south of the border.
That's right. What's up, man?
I'm going to read your bio, Carl. Carl's a reformed pornography addict who in 2019 launched Live Free Ministries and created the Live Free community app to provide a safe and supportive community for men who hunger for real freedom. He also launched Live Free Wives. I didn't even know this, Carl, a free support community for spouses. Carl's literally does so much, I can't even keep up with it. And I make it a point to keep up on things in this space. Carl's an ordained pastor, published author, certified neural health coach, and CEO of xxxchurch.com. His passion for helping individuals find freedom, peace, and purpose is only matched by his New Jersey directness, love for family, devotion to Philadelphia sports teams, and infatuation with his white Jeep Wrangler. Didn't know about the Jeep, Carl. Congratulations on the Jeep. Never had a Jeep. I'm more of a Camaro guy. That's my baby. But you gotta love the Jeep, man. There's just a feel about the Jeep, something about it, right?
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yeah. So let's
Jeep, you don't go back.
Yeah. So let's get going, Carl. We go way back to just a little bit of history. Back when I was starting out in my practice, I think Carl found me on Twitter or something, and he just reached out to me and said, hey, you don't know me, but we're starting these online groups, to help men with porn addiction and sex addiction. Would you be interested in leading one? And I thought, we talked, I got a good feel about it, and I was really, liking what he was doing. And so I agreed. And so that's how we got to know each other. I ended up coming on board. It was xxxchurch at the time and leading a small group. So I led an online group for 5 years and then kind of moved up and was a bit of a kind of a district overseer, sort of mentoring and overseeing leaders of a bunch of other groups. And it's a great experience for me, and I since moved on to other things, but that always has a place in my heart, Carl, that time that I spent. And I'm still in touch, with a couple of there's 2 or 3 guys from that group that I still stay in touch with on Facebook and stuff like that. And it's so great because I see the progress and the healing and the recovery that they've had years later. It's still there and, really changing lives. So why don't you tell us a bit about how the heck did you get involved in this space? What made you think, you know what, I want to spend my life helping guys quit looking at porn and quit their compulsive sexuality?
God would be the easiest thing. That would be the easy answer. Yeah, I mean, I struggle with this stuff for most of my life up to age ish 40, no, 39.
39.
Yeah, like all through high school and college before broadband was even a thing.
Yep.
Got connected with xxxchurch ironically through one of their missions efforts, not their recovery programs. At the time they did, and for years they did missions outreaches to porn shows and would hand out Bibles of Jesus on porn stars and things like that. So I with them through that, through a God-ordained series of screw-ups and oversights, somehow ended up on a missions team, even though I was still dealing with porn myself on many levels. Had no business being there. But like I said, no one lied. I didn't lie to get there. It just was one of these things where things fell through the cracks and I ended up on this team. I had a conversation with somebody who's from the organization at the time. I was just starting, I was in the insurance business for 17 years, just starting seminary because I thought maybe God was calling me into some sort of ministry. I didn't know what. At the time, I thought maybe pastor. That's hilarious because I'd be fired at most churches. But at the time, I thought maybe I'll work for my church, So
Is that you don't play well with others, Carl? Is that what you're trying to
I
say?
do, but just not necessarily in the church world, probably. I'm a little too opinionated, I think.
Yeah,
So,
you and me both. I think. Yeah, you and me both. Yeah.
so long story short, had a really meaningful conversation. Again, a bunch of things just kind of lined up at the same time. I finally found a good accountability partner. I was, you know, more invested in like my spiritual walk, a bunch of stuff, and then just I had this talk, which kind of just shifted my perspective on a bunch of things. And yeah, I was able to finally find freedom in that area of my life. I would say for the first, it's probably the first year or so was probably more sobriety versus true freedom. There was still some
Mhm.
desire, I guess, to go act out once in a while, but I was able to think myself through it, not white knuckle my way through it, but think myself through it and say, no, Carl, you don't want that.
Yeah.
And then that morphed or transitioned into true freedom as I started the hard work of healing trauma and stuff like that from
Mm.
my former years.
Yeah.
So anyway, connected with Triple X Church through that, volunteered with them at some of their shows. They approached me about running their small groups program that they were just launching. They had one beta test group, and that was it. And they wanted to give me an opportunity to run it part time, like basically a 1099 contractor, see what we could do with it. I reached out to you. You were probably like my third leader, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I was the fifth group. That and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Sounds
left,
about right.
when I left, there was like 50 or 60 5 years later. So it was a
So are.
huge
Yep.
growth. Yeah.
So we just started growing it, and then a couple years later, they offered me a full time position. I left insurance, went for that, and yeah, I just had a desire to work in that space because I knew what it was like, and I know the difference between before and after so much better. And then my history with Triple X Church is a pretty crazy one. With there as an employee, quitting several reasons, um, because I didn't enjoy the work culture at the time. Then came back when certain personnel got fired, and I got offered a position, basically a promotion. Decided to come back, prayed about it, but decided to come back, worked there another couple of years, quit again because of other reasons, mostly with the management, we'll just say, and just a difference of views on a lot of things.
Sure.
Started to live free. In March, we ended up buying Triple X Church.
Wow. Okay.
There you
So you
go.
went from
So
the first guy leading the first group to buying the company.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, the nonprofit bought it, but yeah, exactly.
All
Yeah,
right.
it was just
Okay. So acquiring the business model.
yeah, it's kind of
Whatever.
crazy. So
Yeah.
so now we have Triple X Church. We still have the small groups program, which has its own branding, small groups online. We have the Live Free Community app, which is a support community. It's kind of like I hesitate to call it entry level because there's a lot of good stuff in there, but it's we introduced it as an entry level. This is an easy hurdle for most guys to clear. It's $5 a month. You can join anonymously. You know,
Yeah.
it answers a lot of the objections guys have going into recovery. So, and then we have small groups online. We have Live Free Wives for spouses, and then we're working on some new things coming up too. So, just
Okay.
always trying to
I want
introduce
to
some new resources.
Yeah, and I want to circle back near the end, and I want to go through all these platforms. I'm going to post links to all these too in the notes, okay? But just to back up a little bit to the, you're struggling with the compulsive porn use to about age 39, and at some point you realize that this has to change. So guys watch porn. Well, let's just break it down a bit here. Like, so what? So what? What's the big deal? You know, and just so maybe just share like from your perspective, and I know you come from a faith perspective background in the church, but so you can probably speak to that. Like, what are you seeing out there in the landscape? We got high speed internet now. Smartphones are probably not quite around then. It's more of a 10-year phenomenon, but they're starting. So what's the big deal about this? Why get so worked up?
Yeah, I think I mean, honestly, it really, a lot of it depends on your worldview. I try to stay away from this question, or answering this question from a Christian perspective, because it's only going to ring true to Christians. And I do
Right.
think it's a bigger issue than whether you're a Christian or non-Christian. So I would say,
I
if
like
you
that.
take the moral, right, the moral element of it, like obviously if you're a Christian, there's the whole violation of your marriage covenant, blah 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 blah. If you're a non-Christian, you and your wife might use porn and think it's perfectly fine. So I can't argue with that if you don't think that that's a violation of your marriage covenant. So if you extract the whole morality element out of it with porn, I would say the biggest thing is the fact that when you talk to guys who are using porn, it's they're using it habitually speaking. I'm not talking about the guy that might just view it and wank off once every 5 months. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's good necessarily, but I'm not talking about that guy.
Right.
I'm talking about the guys that, or the women, let's not leave them out, who
Right.
habitually use it. They're using it because, not because they need sex per se, but more because they're using it as a way to cope with life, right? So instead of growing in their emotional maturity, learning how to handle the challenges of life in a mature way, instead of relying on critical thinking and examining situations and selecting the appropriate response, they're just going to porn because that's the easy solution to everything. And then
Okay.
our brains get trapped into thinking that, hey, I need to deal with all this hard shit. I can just look at porn and it all goes away for at least the next half hour.
Right.
And that's not healthy. I mean, I don't care what it is. It could be cheeseburgers.
Yeah.
If you're,
Food, drugs, alcohol,
it doesn't
gambling,
matter. Like
gaming.
if you're going to use something to cope with life rather than actually coping with life,
Mhm.
bad. Like that's just not healthy for you.
Yeah.
And so, but porn is a big one because sex is so much a part of our identity. It's, I mean, it's so integral to so many aspects of our life
Mhm.
that, when that goes off the rails, it really messes up a lot. So I think that's the major problem, whether you're a Christian or a non-Christian.
Mhm.
It's a terrible way. It's a terrible way to manage your life through sexual
Mhm.
means.
Mhm. Mhm.
We shouldn't. Sex should not be a coping mechanism. That's
Right.
not what it was meant to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I explain to clients, I say it's a mood altering behavior. Like people that engage in mood altering substances or behaviors do it to alter mood and numb pain and self medicate. And the thing I find with the clients is I work with a lot of addicts, is they're kind of emotionally stunted at the age, and I know I was at the age that they discovered this coping mechanism. So if it's usually around 12, 13, 14, they don't have those skills of being vulnerable, connecting, being honest, assertive, um, negotiating, compromising, just dialoguing. Like they don't have a lot of those skills. So
No.
so they're very stunted emotionally. And then that's they don't develop those skills because they don't need to, because there's always the porn to go to. And I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Just from yourself probably and talking. I mean, you've probably talked to as many or more guys than I have about this. And I've talked to a lot of guys about this, right? Isn't that the theme? No, like once they put the denial aside and say, you know what, this isn't helping me, this is unhealthy. Isn't that kind of what it comes down to? And then that's can be fueled by the trauma, by our own woundings and our own stories, right? Isn't that what you see?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You want to elaborate, or did I say it good enough?
No, no, I think that's it. I mean, it's just it's we have stuff that happened in our life and we don't deal with it. So
Mhm.
I read a book a long time ago on anxiety because I was dealing with anxiety at the time,
Mhm.
and the title was F anxiety, except it was the whole word.
F
And
anxiety.
yeah,
A
yeah,
lot of
it
those
was
F books now,
yeah,
unf
this kind of
yourself, smart and F up, a good hard F and kicking the F and ass, like they're all over.
trying to become less and less the cool thing. But originally, you know, that was the big thing.
Bit
So
of a
and
trend. It's an
some
effing
of those
trend.
some of those books are my favorite books. I'm not gonna lie. There's a couple of books out there that I think are amazing books. A lot of good stuff in them. But he used this one expression in a book. He was talking about anxiety, and I forgot, he said his expression was your brain is a douche. That was in an audio, you know, but he was a therapist,
Okay.
but he was really funny and
Yeah.
irreverent,
Just real
and he
talk,
just
eh? Keep
yeah, and
it
he just
real,
says,
eh?
hey, you just got to realize something, and the sooner you realize it, the better. Your brain's a douche. It doesn't really care about you.
No.
It only cares about itself.
Yeah.
So if it can do something to make itself feel better, it really doesn't care what it does to the rest of your world or your life, as long as
Yeah.
it feels good. So
Yeah.
you just got to remember that your brain is the most selfish organ in your body, and it's
Yeah.
always going to do what's best for it.
Right.
Doesn't care about anything else. And you
Yeah.
just, the sooner you realize that, the sooner you can start, you know, okay, I know my brain's saying this, but
Yeah.
I got to do what's actually best for me overall, not just for what's going to make my brain feel better in the moment.
Yeah. So you're going back to you decide to get on board and start these groups. How bad is it? Like I'm thinking if there's a guy that's literally investing, this would be the guy at the time that started XXXchurch, I guess, but a lot of time and resources into setting up groups to help guys quit porn. I'm thinking that maybe this is a serious problem in general.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
I think the
Like,
numbers are, there's plenty of numbers out there. I mean, some of them are inflated. A lot of them are inflated, but, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know which way you want to look at it, but pornography surveys are not exactly the sexiest thing, you know, that these polling companies really want to get into. So they put out one every 10 years. So that your best data is probably 5 years old. But
that's outdated.
I mean, the number that's been thrown around is right. Like half of men struggle with some sort of repetitive unwanted sexual behavior or porn, whatever. 25-30% of women. It might be give or take 5%, but I mean certainly plenty. It's a big chunk.
Yeah. Is it any
Yeah.
different in the faith community and the churches? Because it seems to me like it isn't.
Yeah, there's now that's the other thing. If you read some of these, it's funny. There was one Covenant Eyes involved in it. I forgot who. I'm trying to think of the organization. It wasn't the Pew, but it was like one of these pretty well known survey companies, and they
The Barna report, maybe?
yeah Barna, yeah I think
Barna,
Barna
yeah,
did
because
it.
they
But it's
released
like
a whole like a little mini book on
yeah, that was it. Yeah, it's
porn.
5 years old.
I
Five
got
years
it
old.
sitting around somewhere here. Yeah, it's 5 years old now, probably.
Stated, but funny, even their numbers didn't entirely add up because they had the percentages of men in faith communities versus the percentages of men in non-faith communities, and it looked like the number was smaller in faith communities. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but let's just say 30 some percent, right? But then in their next survey of pastors, pastors say 50% of pastors say that they know. Some of the numbers just don't make sense. You know,
Yeah,
I don't think that personally, from what I've seen, I don't think that the use is any less of a problem in faith communities than it is in non-faith and outside of faith communities. I just think it's probably quieter, you
yeah.
know, because there's admittedly, and I'm not saying it should be, it's a problem, and this is
Mhm.
probably where I would side on some of your non-Christian therapists. I wouldn't side with a lot of things they say in terms of, well, a certain amount of porn is healthy, but I will say that one of the biggest problems with pornography is the shame that comes with it.
Yeah,
So the faith community, it's twice as bad, right? Because again, you're dealing with the moral element, whereas in an outside of faith community, morality is not really the issue.
yeah,
So
I
so
agree.
it's harder to come out about that stuff in a faith community. But I personally, just from what I've seen, I don't buy it. I think it's probably just as bad, if not worse, honestly.
And how, like from your experiences in the Christian faith, how well is the church doing at addressing this very serious pandemic?
Well, when they get started, I'll let you know.
Right. Yeah.
I'm still waiting. I mean,
Yeah.
it's only been 10 years, but I mean, eventually it'll catch on.
Well, I had a client from I think I only talked to her one time. She's from America, actually. and she was the wife of a porn addict, and she went to a 4,000 seat mega church. I don't know where, but you guys love your mega churches down there, right? You got tons of them.
Yeah, I
And
don't.
I'm just generalizing, right? But I said 4,000 people. How many support groups do they have for the men struggling with pornography? Because if you have 4,000 people, half of them are men, that's 2,000, and half of them are struggling. So it's 1,000. So you have 1,000 men guaranteed struggling with this. How many groups do you have? None. None. The pastor must speak about it from the pulpit. It's such a huge issue. I mean, it's literally tearing faith communities apart. No, not really. And I don't even know what to say, but it's, you touched on a word earlier, Carl, I think is really key. It's the shame. And if guys like you and I got to just talk till we're blue in the face for 5 more years, 10 more years, 15 more years, 20 more years, we're going to do it, aren't we?
Yeah, but
Until it changes.
yeah, we're not going to change it though. That's the thing. You gotta change the conversation, the paradigm of the conversation, right? It needs to.
Tell me what you mean about that a little bit. Expand on that.
Well, and that's like in the book. I wrote a book in February, or it just came out in February, called "When Shame Gets Real."
Well done.
And that's really the focus of most of the book, is the fact that I say this is not a recovery book. Although guys recovering should read it. This is not a.
You got it behind you there. Just hold it up there. I want to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's show everybody. Nice. Okay. And you can get that on Amazon or
Yes,
your
sir.
website.
Yes, sir. Or you can just go to whenshamegetsreal.com and you can pick it up anywhere.
Type triple W, okay, before. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
But the focus of that book is really the idea. I mean, I tackle shame from so many different directions, but one of the big things, or one of the big themes of the book, is the fact that one of the reasons, or the main reason, that we have so much shame around these topics is because we've grown up with so much shame around the conversation in the first place.
So true.
So talking about masturbation, talking about sex lives. I mean, even healthy stuff, right? Like your sex life should, in theory, be healthy, right? But even that conversation, talking to you about my sex life, talking about masturbation, talking about porn, talking about any of the stuff. It's stuff we don't talk about, or we don't think of as fodder for a conversation between friends, let alone a small group or a church group. It's only meant for therapist offices or recovery groups in the darkest, annex of the church, where it only meets Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Right? Like that's the way we treat this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about my sex life with my church friends. That's really personal, but I'll talk about it in my therapist's office when my wife and I are on the brink of divorce because we're not having sex anymore.
Yeah.
And it really shouldn't be, because it's just a part of life. I'm not saying some of these things aren't necessarily a good part of life, but they're a part of life. I mean, porn is porn. It's part of life, whether you like it or not. Masturbation, almost everybody out there has either masturbated, thought about masturbating, or certainly someone who masturbated. I mean, that's pretty common. Sex life, good, bad, absent, indifferent, struggling. We all have, most of us, 99% of us, have some sort of sex life history, right? That we got to deal with, or that we're dealing with. It's just a part of life. So we'll talk about, think about it. You go to small group, sitting there talking to this guy who's overweight. I'm not picking on overweight people, but he has, generally speaking, very little problem admitting in a group of people that, I finally joined the gym. I know I'm a bit of a fat ass, and my doctor said that I need to do something.
I eat too many donuts. I need to
lose. I'm going to die of a heart attack. And we all chuckle and eat our donuts as he's talking about his overweight. But it's perfectly acceptable to talk about that. We've gone to the point where we can talk about being a financial mess. I've heard people say, hey, I'm check to check. They'll openly admit that, which is the same thing as saying, hey, I have no sense of.
Mm-hmm.
We have no problem saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Commiserate. Yeah, I understand what it's like to be financially tight.
Mm-hmm.
But those same people aren't going to dare say, masturbation has been an issue for me for a while, and I need to kind of deal with that. Like, they won't dare say that, because that's just not a cool conversation to have. You just don't talk about that stuff.
Well,
So
and Carl, I've had many clients say to me, it'd be easier if I was just an alcoholic, right? Because
for sure.
if you go to a party and someone says, hey, here's a drink. Hey, no thanks, I go to AA. Oh, right on, man. Hey, Carl, good for you. Sorry about that. Didn't know.
Yep.
For you, buddy. Right? But you go to a party and they're like, hey, we're heading to the peelers after, Carl. Why don't you sneak out with us? No, guys, I'm in recovery for porn and sexually compulsive behaviors. So they first of all, they think you're joking, and then they'd laugh you and tease you half to death, and then you would never speak about it again.
Exactly.
So that's what you mean about changing the conversation, I think, right? Or at least
Yeah.
that's part of it, right?
Part of it. Yeah. I mean, it just
Yeah.
needs to be something that's like part of our daily rhythms. It shouldn't be a big deal to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my mentor, Doug Weiss, years ago, he said, we're like, this is the States. We're 25 years behind AA. Like, we'll be where AA is now in 20 years or 25 years.
Yeah.
And up in Canada, I'm going to add another 10 onto that. I hope I'm wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's just not something we talk about. And
No.
I honestly, I don't even bother going into the churches anymore because I don't see the point. There's no follow-up. There's no, like, I've sent proposals to the heads of denominations saying, I will teach you how to set up groups and train your leaders so that you can help people. And I don't even get a reply.
Yep.
So, which is fine. It is what it is. But okay, I wanted to ask in your I saw a meme the other day. It was funny. It's I think it was the bee. You must know Babylon Bee, right?
Oh
Follow
yeah.
them.
Yeah.
So they have this huge empty room and the caption says, conference leaders puzzled at why no one showed up to their let's get men to sit around and talk about their feelings conference, right? And it's just like 100 empty chairs, right? So here we are. So you or whoever comes up with this idea and you're on board, let's get guys together to talk about this. So what did you find? Was it easy? Was it hard? Did half the guys drop out a week later? Was it frustrating? Is there some great success stories? Like, give us a sense of that. You've been going on doing this for 10 years, so maybe just give me an overview, Carl, of that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it was a lot more successful than we ever expected it to be. I mean, realistically, it's one of those things where it's not. I don't want to say it's not for everybody, because I think it is for everybody, but not everybody thinks it's for everybody.
Mhm.
It takes a special breed, if you will, to say, hey, you know what? I think I want to join a support group and via video and talk to a bunch of guys about my sexual. It takes a special breed of person. Not
Mhm.
everybody's willing to do that, mostly because, again, the shame. But there's also a lot of people who just not that serious about it. So, but for those that about the recovery do recognize the value of support, it works great, and it can change lives. I mean, most of our leaders,
Yeah.
almost all of our leaders at this point, and that's 50 some leaders, almost all of our leaders at this point, former groups members, almost all of them.
Yeah, I think I ran across, I won't mention names for confidentiality, but one of the guys that was in my group, like, and this is going back 10 years, is
Mhm.
leading a group. So, wore my little heart when I saw that. And I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
carrying it forward, right?
Yeah. So then that would be like that if it didn't work. I had a guy, so I lead a pastors group on Wednesday mornings, and I'm not gonna say his name, but we were talking afterwards briefly, and this guy's been in my group for probably 3 years at this point. Younger guy, younger pastor, really, really great kid, and he's a kid to me. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Anyone under 30 is a kid, right?
right, exactly. So, and we were talking. I remember at one point, this is probably a couple years ago, he had called me up and said he was thinking of canceling because he just felt he was doing this, he was doing that, he just felt he was doing too much. And I had said to him, well, look, if you want to cancel, you got to, cancel. I don't want you to spend every waking hour of your life in recovery, because that's not necessarily helpful either. But, consider what you're canceling, what's helping you the most, this and that. Anyway, I forgot. There was a couple of things he was saying that I just kind of challenged him on, in terms of, I don't know if that's necessarily the best avenue, the way you're going. And he listened to me and he stuck around. And we were talking the other day. He hasn't looked at porn or masturbated in, I think, close to 2 years at this point. And we were talking about, I said, hey, dude, you should lead a group at this point.
Nice.
And he said, yeah, I think I want to soon. And he said to me, I mean, these were his words. He said, all my life, I always grew up believing that this was an inescapable addiction. Like, I would never be over this. I firmly believe that. I didn't think it would ever be over.
What a horrible feeling that must be, eh?
Yeah. And he said, and this is a pastor, he
Wow.
said, now I know that's a lie.
Yeah.
I know it's a complete lie, and it's totally possible. But it took him 3 years to get there.
Yeah.
I know the groups work, and it's just part of the puzzle. I mean, if you plug into a support group and you don't do anything else, you're probably going to struggle.
Yeah, it's going to be 50-50, I think.
I mean, you
You
need the
just show up,
support.
don't engage, don't share, don't like guys that even see a therapist on the side, or a coach, or somebody, they tend to also do well. Why does it work, Carl? Walk us through a little bit for people, because I want people to watch this and hopefully get that. I want to challenge them. If you're watching this and you're not part of a community or group, I want to challenge you to really, take that step. So maybe just walk us through real quick, like how the group runs and what happens in the group and why it works.
Honestly, I don't think there's any magic sauce in terms of our format versus someone else's format, to be honest. I mean, there's groups out there that are very curriculum focused, and that's fine. Some guys need that. Ours aren't. Ours are more just focused on the sharing of community more than anything. And it's kind of, hey, do your homework outside of here. So go see your therapist, read your book, do your course, but then bring back what you learned and process it out with everyone here. But I don't think the secret to the success is necessarily what we do. I think it helps, obviously. But the reason community is important is because we all need connection. And I'm probably gonna murder what. So we have a therapist also that deals with us. I think you know him from before, because he did the X3 Pure course for us, Steve Luff. But he's a California guy. Really great guy. What's that?
Yeah, the name rings a bell. Yeah, I don't think
he's a really smart guy, and not as smart as you, Paul, of course, but he's not.
Who is, right?
Nah, but he's a really smart guy. I mean, been doing this forever, and we got in a good conversation about it. And I geek out on all this stuff, vagal tone, and we won't get into all that because that's a whole different path. But I geek out on all the brain stuff. He said, hey, look, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're all mammals. And mammals need connection to feel safe.
So true.
We need safety. That's a need of every mammal. He says lizards not so much. Lizards can
they just need the hot sun, right? They can just lie by themselves in the hot sun.
They don't care. They don't care.
Right. Yeah.
But mammals need others. That's why you see packs and all these things like that. And we are mammals at the end of the day to feel safe. And what happens is when we grow up, some sort of trauma, right? Whether it's abuse or just abandonment or emotional abandonment, whatever, all these things make us feel safe.
Unsafe, right?
Right. We feel unsafe. So fear is a huge driver for our unwanted sexual behaviors. It's this thing of, I feel unsafe right now. And he said, one of the reasons community is so important is because you bring in that element that we're lacking. We need people to feel safe around. So once we have our tribe, once we have our group, we can let down our defenses and we start feeling a little safe again. And when we feel safe, we feel less need to act out, because now oh, hey, we know that it's okay to be vulnerable. Now we know that there are people who actually love us for who we are and not who for what they want us to be. And we start putting these things together that we grew up without knowing or realizing
Mm-hmm.
the difference.
Yeah.
So you just need it. And then beyond that, also there's just the whole biochemical aspect of it. I mean, serotonin, or no, oxytocin. Well, serotonin is involved too, but oxytocin is called the love drug, right? Where
Yeah. It's a
you
bonding,
touch it,
bonding hormone.
right?
Right.
I mean, oxytocin and serotonin are huge. They're the reasons that people are on all sorts of drugs, for their emotional swings and stuff, right? Because
Yeah.
they're not processing enough, or they're not,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever serotonin, oxytocin they have in their body, they're not metabolizing properly, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So these are all things that get released, through connection, right? And
Yeah.
healthy levels of oxytocin and serotonin help us stay more emotionally centered. They build emotional resilience, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we don't have that stuff, we tend to see lower levels of that happening in our system, right? Because we don't have those connections, we don't have those bonds. So therefore, we don't have necessarily those healthy levels of those neurotransmitters, which then harms our emotional well-being.
Mm-hmm.
We're more prone to things like depression and anxiety and all this stuff. So it
Yeah.
really goes back to that. It's a basic mammal need. We need people, we need groups to make us feel safe.
Yeah. Have you heard the saying, the opposite of addiction is connection? Of course.
I've
Of
heard
course.
that.
100 times, right?
One guy gets credited for that in some TEDx talk. I can't remember his name, but I've also seen
Just stole it from someone else, right?
attributed to 50 different people, but it's been floating around there forever. But it's great. I mean, it's true too, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think what you're, just this idea of facilitating connection helps with recoveries is so important, because I know that the guys that do, not all my clients participate in a group. Okay. And if you're listening today and you're struggling in your recovery or your sexual behaviors, and you're asking, do I have to join a group to quit porn? I'd say the answer is no. But I will tell you for sure that people that engage in a supportive community progress faster, are more consistent and stable in the recovery, and have few to no slip ups or relapses.
Yeah.
Right. And that's from 11 years of clinical experience. And I'm sure in your 11 or 15 years of doing this, you would probably echo that, right, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's funny because when I first started this back in the day, and a lot of this was handed down to me from the powers that be when I worked for xxxchurch, but small groups online used to be originally called X3 groups. That was kind of the bastard stepchild resource of the organization. They wanted to really lean in on their filters and accountability software and their workshops and these higher ticket items, shall we say?
Yeah.
And groups was just kind of this distraction. Carl, run it. If you grow it, great. If you don't, whatever. And
Mm,
I'd say for the first 5 years working there, running groups, I felt like I was in this constant struggle to get recognition. Like, guys, this is really helpful. It's way more helpful than some of this other stuff that you keep pushing. But I remember we used to send out emails. Say, oh, hey, I'm struggling, and I had an email template, and the template was, all right, here's some places to start. Number one, get accountable, download this.
yeah.
Number two, get educated, do this recovery course, talk to a
Mhm.
counselor. Number three, join a community. And it was always the third on the list of three. And now, years later, I'd say that's number one. And
Join the
then everything
community.
else, join the community first.
Yeah.
Because I've personally, I've never met anyone, honestly, that can say they're truly free who's done it entirely solo without any sort of community support. I've never met anyone.
Yeah.
I've met
Mhm.
sober people that
Yeah.
have done it solo, but I've never met free people. And I would say there's a difference there.
What's
Now
the,
they
what's
might
the
say,
difference? What's the difference between sober and free?
I think there's a lot of differences, and it could be, it's not just one thing, but I mean, one of the biggest things is sober, I mean, there's a lot of sober guys running around out there where they're still struggling with this stuff, the desire to use or this or that. And they've come up with healthy ways to process it and get around it and not deal with it, but it's still very much a thing that is kind of hanging over them. You know, it's
Okay.
like you said, it's kind of like the alcoholic that says, "Hey, hey, we're going to the bar. You want to come with us?" No, I can't even step foot in there. I'm a reformed alcoholic. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not alcoholic, but in my opinion, it's, well, if you're truly over your alcoholism, why is walking to a bar going to trigger you? Like, you should have
Mm,
outgrown that. I
yeah.
don't know. Again, I might be talking out of school here because I'm not an alcoholic or a former alcoholic, but I just, something about that rings weird for me. It's
Right.
like, if you're really free of that alcoholism, simply walking to a bar should not send you on a bender.
Right.
And it's kind of the same thing with some of these guys. It's like, oh, I'm sober. I'm sober. I've been free for 5 years. Okay, great. Hey, we're all doing a road trip to the beach. You want to go? No, no. Swimsuits are still a very big issue for me. Okay, well,
Mhm,
you're sober. I don't
mhm,
know if I'd say you're free because that's still,
mhm.
you know what I mean? Like,
So free is the almost total absence of strong triggers. So when you're free, you
yeah.
don't really have the strong triggers, the persistent thoughts, the intrusive thoughts, the cravings that hit you over and over and over again. They're just kind of
I'd say
gone.
that's half of it, definitely. Like,
Yeah.
and I would say when I try to explain to guys, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you're not going to be tempted or attracted. That's different. That's not what I'm saying. But
Mhm.
if you want to think of it in a really basic way that a lot of men, especially, could understand, the sober guy down the road sees a female jogger, really tight tube top, right, and exposed midsection, and she's got big boobs. That guy sees it, and he's literally triggered. Oh my gosh, I kind of want to go look at porn, but I'm not going to. I'll do this and I'll do that, and I'll figure out my coping mechanisms to get around it. But he still feels that draw to go look at porn. Whereas a free guy is still going to see that, register that that's attractive.
Yeah.
There's not that automatic trigger response to, I wonder if I should go look at porn. Like, I still, as a guy
Yeah.
who's recovered from this stuff,
Yeah.
I still enjoy a naked woman, right? Or
Mm,
boobs. Like,
yeah.
it's not that I don't find that stuff attractive, or
Yeah.
I still don't have to say, okay, hey, that looks nice, but I'm not going to keep looking at her because she
Mhm.
deserves better than that. That doesn't mean that I'm still whatever breathing, right?
Yeah.
But healthy individuals should be able to see an attractive person of the same or opposite sex, whatever.
Mhm,
We won't go there, but
mhm.
see an attractive person, recognize that, not have the automatic response, oh, I need to go jack off and look at porn. Like,
Yeah.
that's not healthy,
Yeah.
So I'd say that's one of the big things between a free, and I would say, and this is just my opinion, but I would also say the lack of shame about it.
Mhm.
I've talked to a pastor before. This is actually in the book, but I remember we were talking on the phone one day. I forgot why he called us, but he was calling me. I think I was with xxxchurch at the time, but calling for help for somebody in his congregation. And I gave him some resources and stuff. And I said, well, dude. And then he told me that he had struggled with this stuff, but he had been free for 5 years. I said, oh, that's great. I said, well, honestly, man, you're probably his best resource,
Right.
you know? And then he told me, in so many words, yeah, I'm free of it, but I'm not comfortable telling people about it.
Mm. So the shame's still there.
Yeah, to me, that's not freedom.
No.
Like, you're not just free of the behavior, you're not just free of the constant struggle and fight internally, but you're also free of the shame that went along with your past mistakes. Like, to me,
Yeah.
that's a picture of freedom. And guys that are sober usually are lacking that. They're
Yeah.
sober, but they still feel a lot of shame about what they did, and they still feel reasons they're not in a community because they don't want to own it. You
Yeah.
know?
I'm just looking at your hat right now. It's of course says shameless on it, which is so great to the conversation. And just to what you said, Carl, I remember when I started my recovery, this is 16 years ago or 17 years ago, I joined a group. Okay. So I have gone through a group in my recovery. And I remember being it was just me and like four guys in this little room, and looking at the floor, so ashamed, so beaten down. My wife at the time had kicked me out of the house, and I couldn't even like make eye contact. I look at porn and masturbate, look at porn, and I lie about it, right? So fast forward, I was a keynote speaker at a conference. This would be pre-COVID, so 2019. So this is like 15 years later, right? And I give my big talk on porn. I was talking about porn and treating porn and sex addiction, and then someone asked me from the audience, "So what?" And I get this question a lot. What got you interested in this? And I just said, "Oh, well, I used to struggle with compulsive porn use myself until I got into recovery and I stopped using it." And like these are my peers. There's like 100 people of my peer, and they all actually just like gave me a spontaneous round of applause, right? And it was beautiful, not because look at me, but if you could have seen me that first year to now. And I want anyone watching this to take hope from that, no matter how defeated and broken down and filled with shame you are, you do not have to stay there, okay? And you can experience freedom from shame, like Carl, like it says on Carl's hats now, Shameless, and get his book, because he talks all about that and how it's just a toxic. The guilt is useful and necessary, okay, but shame is toxic and poison to your soul and unnecessary. And Carl, one of the best ways I found for guys to get rid of their shame is join a community, tell their story, and
Mm-hmm.
be loved anyway.
Yep.
That's how I break it down. Basically, that's it. Right?
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah. Because guys spill their guts, and the guys in the group are like, "Hey man, thanks for sharing. Hey, appreciate that. Hey, that must have been tough." Like that's it. You just get the love back, right?
Yep.
And,
Yeah. I
yeah.
tell people jokingly, but not really. I mean it. We're free XXX Church, all the things we do. We're in the we're in the business of how it. We're in the business of how it is, not how it should be. Like
Mm,
if uh, if things ran the way they should run, a need for us. A need
mm,
for a porn recovery support group, because this would just be stuff you would talk about, right? But
right.
because that's not the way it is. The way it is the way it is, which is not good. So
Mm,
we need these communities where guys can feel welcomed and loved and accepted, or women can feel loved and welcomed and accepted for who they are, despite their errors, despite their struggles. Like we need that. And again, it's not the way it should be. It's just the way it is. And
yeah.
so, yeah, that's the best place to find it, because you're going to have a hard time finding that same type of open acceptance in a non in a community that's not a recovery focused community. People are still weirded out, and that's their problem, which I say that in the book. Like that's their problem. That's not your problem. You're not doing anything wrong by being open and honest about your struggles.
Yeah.
Their hang up is their hang up. They
Right.
need to get over it. But unfortunately, for a lot of guys, you don't have the luxury of time to wait for them to get over it, because that could take all of their life. So better to plug into a support community where it's just commonly accepted, hey, we're here for this reason and we're all about each other, and start getting better that way, because you might be waiting a long time for the rest of culture to catch up.
Yeah. Just doing a screen share quick. Here's the Live Free. Can you see that, Carl, where you are?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So there's Carl and his lovely wife. So guys, this is the website for if you want to join a small group. What Carl and I have been talking about.
Yeah,
Um,
click the if you go upstairs. So if you click the Live Free logo,
okay.
that's the
There we
home
go.
page.
Yeah.
That's the homepage that'll get
Okay.
them on, like, where we talk about the app and stuff. If they just want to sign up for the app,
So
and
the
then if you
app is the place where they can privately and confidentially connect with the other people in their group, correct?
yeah, well, that's just the app. So
Okay.
um, so that's kind of like I say, that's our entry level, if you will,
Yeah.
resource. Now, if you scroll up all the way, like scroll all the way to the top, Like small groups. See the small groups there?
Yeah.
That's our online, like what you were part of. That's our
Yeah.
online small group program.
So
And then anybody,
and then we can go women, men, pastors, spouses. So let's say we go men, and let's say Monday is a day for you, then it will pull up. This is very well designed, by the way. Boom. There you go.
have all those
Okay.
groups to pick from.
So
And
there's
anybody
7 groups on Monday.
who's in an online small group, men wise at least, they get automatic free access to Live Free Community. So they don't have to pay for Live Free Community. That's thrown in as an automatic perk, if you will, of being in our small groups. So
Okay, I'm gonna share the Live Free app. Let me just find it here. Or was that, oh, is small groups online? Is that
yep,
Live Free? Is that,
smallgroupsonline.com and then livefreecommunity.org. Those are the two links.
yeah, so Live Free Community. Small groups online. No, that's where we just were, right?
Yep.
Okay, and then this is also that. Let me just pull it up real quick. I literally just had it open here, but Live Free
Community, yeah, .org.
.org. Okay.
And I mean, honestly, if people just want an easy place to find everything we offer, if you go to xxxchurch.com,
right.
links to everything we offer are right on the homepage.
Right.
So
Oh,
links to,
so this was it. I did have this up. Sorry. This
yeah,
was
you did.
okay.
So we have links to the app. We have links to the small groups program. We have links to our online recovery course. We have a link to the book. So everything that we offer is right on the xxxchurch.com homepage.
Okay, and I have that here too. So we'll just share that real quick. So this is
No, that's X3 Pure.
oh, X3 Pure. Okay. So is this are you involved with this, or is this still something else?
That's our recovery video workshop.
Video workshops? Okay. So I'll put links to all of this later. So anyway, I just wanted to share some of those websites so people could get a get a feel for what they look like. It's very easy. You sign up. It's $30 a month, right? And that gives you one meeting a week, direct messaging, your own group, accountability. $30.
It's going to be 30. It's 35 starting September. We were, so it was 39 for the past 5 years. And then in January, because of COVID and everything, we dropped the price. We cut the price by 25% just to help people out. So that was the only reason we did it. We just wanted people to not have to lose their recovery access or feel like they needed to cut their recovery because of budget. And now that we're kind of coming out of this thing, we're not going back up to the 39. No, we're just going to 35. So it's still less than what it's been for 5 years. So most people are used to price increases. We're
That's
still
super cheap. It's super cheap. It's less. It's a coffee a day, right?
Yeah, it's still very inexpensive, but we try to, our focus at with our ministries, big thing is recovery needs to be accessible and affordable. So so we try to make sure all our resources are very reasonable and attainable for the average person.
One more screen share, Carl. Tell us about the Shameless website, and this is the name.
Yeah, so Shameless is so that's an online event that we're doing in September. We're doing this first one, so we're opening it up to churches and individuals. The idea behind this was, with COVID, events and things like that down across everywhere. Like people just don't do live events at churches much anymore.
No.
And so we wanted to reintroduce events, but we wanted something that was semi-pandemic proof, that also didn't require a speaker necessarily to come out. And we also wanted to change the angle change the angle of these talks, because back in the day, XXX Church had a thing called Porn and Pancakes, which a lot of people ripped that off by now, and they all have their own version of Porn and Pancakes because it's a catchy name. And it was a good event. I've been to several of them, but to be honest, it was like every other porn event I've been to for men. It was basically someone gets up, talks about how bad porn is and why you need to get recovery. and talk to somebody, and then they shake a few hands and you leave and nothing changes. And so I didn't want to go down that road because I just feel, not that I'm saying I disagree with the message, but I just feel at this point, I don't know if I need to beat that drum that much. I mean, I'd say at least in the church world, most people at this point, whether they want to admit it or not, recognize that porn is an issue, right?
Mhm.
Uh, the thing that we're still not tackling is the conversation in the first place. It's the fact that we won't, like you said, we won't talk about it in a church of 4,000 people. There's zero talk about it. To me, that's the main problem. And
Yeah.
I have no way to prove that. Look at the evidence. I'm a logical guy, so I just like to do the math. XXX Church, one of the first, if not the first, to really start talking about this aggressively 20 years ago, my man, like 20 years ago.
Funny. Wow.
XXX Church has been around 20 years. So
Oh, I didn't realize it was that long.
we were pretty much the first. And yeah, awareness was not, there wasn't a lot of awareness. There weren't a lot of resources there. We were lacking all this stuff. So XXX Church came in and did awareness, resources. Since then, there are a ton of organizations out there all doing this now, right? Building awareness, offering resources. So you would think the problem was the lack of awareness and resources. 20 years later, we'd be way better off. But we're not. The
No.
question is, let's just do the math. If you thought you filled a need, then the problem's still there. You missed the mark. There's still a need that we're missing, and I think the missing need is the fact that we don't talk about this stuff at all, right? How is a guy or a woman going to get help if they don't feel empowered to go ask for it from somebody because of the shame that persists around the conversation of sex in its entirety? So, so the focus of Shameless is really that. It's about normalizing these conversations with your friends, with your spouses, and with your kids.
Right.
And it's just this bigger conversation. Hey, how do we talk about this stuff in a healthy way with all these different elements or these different circles we all have in our lives? Because if we can get past that and we can learn how to have a talk about masturbation with our kids at the dinner table and it not weird them out, maybe, just maybe, our kids will grow up a little adjusted than we did.
That's a tricky one, right? Masturbation at the dinner table and it not be awkward. Okay, I hope we can all get there.
Yeah, I mean,
but it's in a sense, Carl, it's almost, and I don't want to say too late for our generation, but like we all grew up with the non conversations about sex, healthy sexuality, porn. Like almost all of us grew up that way. Every client I have, no conversations about that. But it's not too late. I mean, so doesn't mean that it's too late for us to learn, but it's not too late for this generation, I think, coming up of kids and teenagers, where that's where we can make the difference with this generation. And at the same time, though, they're being targeted more aggressively with more hardcore sexual material that's easier to access than any time in human history. So there's the conflict,
the
battle, so to speak. Wow, right. Yeah.
So that's what that event's about. But like I said, this first time that we're doing it online. So it's going to be open to groups to sign up, like a viewing party.
Right.
But then it's also open for individuals because, let's be honest, there's a lot of people out there that aren't tied into a church that's going to be offering this. So they're going to be able to sign on and view the whole event. And then we're going to have online chat during the breakout sessions where they can share, because there's going to be questions to go through. So it's an experience. It's not just a 1 hour talk. It's going to be segment, breakout session, segment, breakout session, segment, breakout session. And so we want to offer that for individuals as well.
So would this be good to send this to my my clients,
sure,
leaders in the faith community, leaders of the groups, 12-step group leaders? Would this be okay?
Yeah, and they could sign up as a group, and then they could do their own. Basically, if they sign up as a group, the difference is they still view it with us, but they're not going to have the breakout session online via chat. They're going to do it live.
Yeah,
and we'll send them materials to help them foster those conversations locally, right? So it'll be like, watch the segment, then we do our breakout session here, then we go back online and watch the next segment, right?
Okay.
And we'll all be doing it together. It's going to be everybody. It starts at 9 a.m. or 12 p.m. Eastern.
Okay.
Same time for everybody.
Yeah.
At least this first time. Then we're going to see, once we see how this goes, and then it's probably going to be something where we offer it on demand for churches that want to sign up, or we might just run it once every quarter, or we haven't figured that out yet, but we want to see how this first one runs.
Sure. Okay. And is it coming from the faith perspective, that sort
Yeah.
of language, or is it a wider, if you believe you don't necessarily have to go to church to benefit from this?
No, you don't have to go to church, for sure. I mean,
Okay.
it's geared towards community because they're the ones that would have these events, right? If you will. But no, I mean, we don't. I mean, got half of it in a in a brewery.
Okay.
Yeah. So me and the guy in some of the videos, me and Mike, he's my pastor, but we had doubts while we were talking. So we went with a dark one, so we have plausible deniability that could be coffee. It's not necessarily beer. But yeah, we were talking over a good stout the whole time. So yeah.
That's good. Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to kind of wrap it up, Carl. We've been a good hour here. So the pillars of recovery would be here's kind of what I tell clients. It's accountability, connection, therapy, coaching, participating in a group is often where you get your accountability and connection. Digging into, dealing with past traumas, hurts, abuses, neglects, your story, and then you want to add to that.
No, that's pretty much it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, dealing with the shame but that's kind of that fiber or that thread runs through all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's why you're in community. It's what prevents you from having good, solid accountability with somebody. It's dealing with the past pain and trauma through coaching and through counseling and through all that stuff. Obviously, these sources of shame in our life are going to be the things that we're going to be dealing with. Like they're going to be, the stuff that causes us the pain that we're trying to cope with is also the stuff that causes the sense of shame in our life, right? Like, hey, I have pain because my dad never really, whatever, I have daddy issues. My dad never really treated me right. Well, that's a source of pain, but it's also a source of shame because you carry around this thought in the back of your head. What is wrong with me that he didn't want to show me that affection?
Yeah, I just
why am I so broken?
Yeah, I just thought shame comes from pain, and it's kind of a good saying, but I think it's really true. So clinically, psychologically, and spiritually, I'm trying to think of a situation where someone feels shame where there's not pain. I mean, I can't think of it. It's like pain, then the shame comes from that. So dealing with the root of your pain would be a really important part of healing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. All right, Carl, that's some good stuff there. Anything you want to share, sort of last words, or wrap up?
Just appreciate you having me on, and it was good catching up with my Canadian brother.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you and your history with us, and of course there's always an open leader spot for you if you ever decide to, when you make it big and you have time to kill because you don't need to work anymore.
Yeah, not quite
if you
there
want to
yet, buddy.
if you want to blow an hour a week, feel free to donate some time back to us, or
Right.
and lead. So there's always an open seat for you if you ever decide to lead for us again.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you, brother. Thanks again for all the work you do, for bringing me in for the ride. Years ago was a great experience leading that group for the 5 years I did, and I'm really proud of you. Really encouraged at how you continue to carry on through all kinds of. I know there's a lot of setbacks and ups and downs through this, as there is with anything worthwhile. When you build anything worthwhile, there's going to be some trials and tribulations and
Yes.
setbacks, but here you are still today doing the good work. So thanks so much. We'll stay in touch. We'll sign off there for now, and you have a great weekend, Carl.
You too, buddy. Thanks.
Cheers.
Yeah.